Thanks for tuning in to the Real Women Chronicles podcast. I am your international certified life coach, Tiadra Taylor. The sole purpose of this podcast is to get you from where you are now to where you want to be. Yes, it's time to break chains and to get unstuck. Thanks again for joining in. Let's begin. Hello, and thank you guys for joining me for yet again another week of the Real Women Chronicles podcast. I am your host, Coach T, certified life and relationship coach. This week we are on podcast number 76, and I just want to give a quick shout out to all of you guys who have been downloading the episodes each and every week. I see that this podcast is continuously growing, and I'm just humbled by it, and I'm absolutely ecstatic about where God is taking me in this podcast and all the ideas that I have for you all in the future. So thank you for staying tuned in. If this is your first time, welcome. Be sure to go to the iTunes app on your phone, or I know with my iPhone at least, you should also have a podcast app automatically stored on your phone. Like I never stored this podcast app, and it's automatically on the iPhones. Not too sure about Droid, but wherever you're at, be sure at the end of this podcast that you subscribe to this podcast. That way you can get notification each and every time I post, and you don't have to keep checking back, and you don't have to go to all these different platforms. You can literally be alerted by using iTunes. And now I do have the podcast playing on iHeartRadio as well as SoundCloud. There's even episodes that automatically get loaded onto YouTube. But again, iTunes for me is the best platform that I could really, ensure that you guys are getting the necessary notifications. So check out the podcast on that app. Be sure to rate the podcast. Be sure to even leave me a comment. If these podcasts are helping you the way that you guys are emailing me and telling me they're helping you, show me some love and rate the podcast, leave me a message, all of that good stuff. I truly would appreciate it. So like I said, this week we are on podcast number 76. I wanted to talk on the topic of, is it insecurity or intuition? I thought this was a extremely important topic to kind of shed some light on, because these two terms and these two feelings that we have often will be confused with one another. So I kind of wanted to do a podcast to kind of shed light and just elaborate on these two terms so that we're all aware when one is showing itself rather than the other. It's very important to understand that we never want to make major decisions off of insecurity. And we never want to ignore our God-given intuition. And so that's why I want to just give you a few key pointers on both of those terms so that you know when one of them are speaking loud and clear. And you might need to put a muscle on one of them and ignore it, or you might need to allow the voice to be heard and follow it. Okay? Often we will allow insecure thoughts to force us to believe that they are real. And these thoughts will force themselves into our mind, and sometimes they're repetitive. They come all day long or each and every day, and we don't realize that these thoughts are coming from an internal source. An internal source is bringing these thoughts. Now, granted, with intuition, that's felt internally too, but the difference is insecurity often stems from an external factor, but we mistake it and we believe that it's coming from an internal source. When really insecurity is, granted, it is something that's coming, from your mental Rolodex, but we seem to believe that we're not insecure. It's just this external factor that's causing us to feel this way, not realizing that it's really an issue from within. So here is how you know. I'm just going to sum it up and give you 3 key ways to identify when your insecurities are talking. Okay? Number 1, your thoughts are deriving from a previous unresolved issue. And what I mean by that is, let's say you're in a relationship and you continuously get the feeling that somebody is cheating on you or somebody's lying to you. Check where these thoughts are coming from. Are they legitimate, or are they coming from previous unresolved issues that have absolutely nothing to do with that partner? Are they coming from issues that you had in your previous relationship where somebody actually cheated on you, or even in childhood where people didn't follow through and their word wasn't their bond? So check the thought first and ask yourself, where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? Is it coming out of nowhere, or is it coming from past experiences? Number 2, you're projecting how you feel about yourself onto others. Insecure thoughts are known for doing that. And trust me, I know. A lot of times, if you feel like you're not as attractive and you feel low about your appearance, then, the other women who you deem to be, I guess, more attractive to you, it's easy to think that your mate is staring at this person or paying attention to this person because you don't feel like you're attractive. You don't feel like you're enough to keep that person's attention. So you develop these insecure thoughts and you project them onto other people thinking that they feel the same way. And a lot of times with insecurity, you're absolutely wrong. Now, granted, I know any of you who have listened to my previous podcast, you guys will know that I often talk about the fact that at times people will treat you how you treat yourself. So if you're constantly insecure in a relationship and you're constantly thinking that less of yourself, then it can potentially lead to your mate eventually feeling the same way. Anybody who's confident, extremely confident, will tell you, like, it's not about looks. It's not about any of that. If you believe yourself to be beautiful, other people will start to see it and notice it too. But if you feel like you're less than and you're unworthy, even that the most beautiful woman in the world will begin to look unattractive because she believes that about herself. Remember that. So number 3, your reactions or thoughts are stemming from things you've done to others. You guys do not know how many times a person who has been the cheater, who has been the manipulator, who has been the liar, believes that another person is doing that to them. Because they have this guilty conscience that, hey, if I can do it without remorse many times, then why wouldn't you? So if your thoughts are stemming from a place of, hey, I did it, I cheated, I did this, and now I'm feeling like you could potentially be doing the same thing, that's coming from insecurity. Now, on the flip side, the thing that we have to understand about intuition is that it is God-given. Intuition is not, we don't have that, especially as women. We do not have intuition by chance. That is absolutely God's way of speaking to us. It's intuition is almost like a nagging feeling that comes from the pit of your gut. And even when you want it to go away, even when you hope it'll go away, it stays right there. And Lord knows that I can attest to having strong intuitive feelings about people that I've dated. And whether I ignored it or not, the point is you don't get rest from that intuitive type of feeling, that gut feeling that something's not right about a person. And no matter what you do to try to ignore it, the feeling does not go anywhere. So let me just give you a few signs that will help you recognize when your intuition is speaking. Number one, if there are clear red flags, God is potentially giving you signs. See, he often doesn't ignite our intuition without really giving us signs that almost confirm it, especially in relationships. I can't tell you how many times I've heard someone say, oh, I felt it in my intuition that this person wasn't right for me. I felt it in my intuition that this person was cheating. And then through that feeling, you start to recognize certain things. And God basically opens your eyes to certain things that's going on. Pay attention to the red flags, because these are signs from God to confirm the feeling that you're having, to let you know that He's not whispering, to your soul for no reason. Number two, if you are not operating out of a spirit of low self-esteem, jealousy, or envy, and that is one of the most important factors to key in when you're trying to determine if your intuition is speaking. If you're not overly jealous or envious about, your partner or the interactions that they have with other people, if you are not one that typically suffers from very extreme low self-esteem, then trust and believe if you're having a gut feeling about something, it's your intuition talking, because only insecurity really manifests feelings of jealousy or envy or, low self-esteem. But when your intuition is talking and you're not operating from any of those other categories I just named, it's a big sign. You want to take heed to what it's telling you. You want to trust it. Number three, repetitive thoughts that come from nowhere. I remember in being in a relationship years ago where out of the blue I would constantly get this nagging feeling about the guy that I was with at the time. And I would constantly trust me, I would always try to give him the benefit of the doubt and hope that this nagging feeling that he's not to be trusted, that he's constantly lying, will go away. And guess what? It never went away, and would it come to me out of nowhere. Like he didn't have to do anything. Nothing had to happen. I didn't necessarily always have to see a red flag. The thought would just come and just appear, and it kept coming. Pay attention. Those are often your thoughts coming from your intuition. It's important that you understand, no matter how good something looks or seems, if it doesn't feel good, then walk away. If it doesn't feel good, 9 times out of 10, it was not for you. And that's the thing about intuition. It's a feeling, and it guides us. And our job is to really trust it and to understand that there's a supernatural power that is working behind the scenes. So I'm hoping and praying that this podcast will shed some light to an issue that you guys may be uncertain about, give you a little bit of clarity on, which way to turn. If not, and you find that you need further coaching, I will leave my information in the bio, also at the end of this podcast. Let's go ahead and end this podcast in prayer. Father God, we just thank you for granting us and blessing us with intuition, Father God. Thank you for speaking to us when we need to be spoken to. Now, here's the key. Give us the strength that we need to follow our intuition, even when our heart is trying to pull us in another direction. I understand that intuition is there to protect us. So give us the strength to follow that intuition, to go after